Bernard Williams, 1929 to 2003, was an influential British philosopher whose work had a lasting impact on moral philosophy, political theory, and the philosophy of mind. His profound ideas on ethics, human nature, and personal integrity provide rich lessons that can be applied to modern life. Williams's unique approach to philosophy was grounded in a deep understanding of human vulnerability, moral complexity, and historical context. Through his work, he offered valuable insights into how to navigate the challenges of personal and moral life. This video exploration of Williams' thought focuses on 10 central life lessons derived from his philosophy. 1. Embrace moral complexity. Bernard Williams firmly rejected the idea of a simple, one-size-fits-all solution to moral problems. In his critique of major ethical systems, Williams argued that ethical life is much more complicated than what many classical theories, like utilitarianism or Kantian ethics, suggest. Instead of offering straightforward solutions to dilemmas, Williams proposed that ethics is a deeply personal, context-dependent, and often conflicting realm. Williams' critique of ethical systems. Williams was critical of moral theories that tried to reduce the complexity of human life to a set of rules or abstract principles. In his work Ethics and the Limits of Philosophy, 1985, Williams argued that major moral theories like utilitarianism and Kantianism oversimplify the human experience by disregarding the emotions, biases, and conflicts that shape moral decisions. For example, utilitarianism tries to maximize happiness across society, but Williams pointed out that it ignores the way people's individual identities, needs, and values shape how they experience happiness. Likewise, Kantian ethics, which focuses on universal moral rules, neglects the deep moral ambiguity and personal struggles people face in specific situations. Williams also explored how moral conflicts are often inevitable. For instance, a person may face a situation in which loyalty to a friend conflicts with the demand for social justice, or where fulfilling personal ambitions may undermine important family relationships. In these cases, Williams argued, there is no universally correct choice. Instead, people must engage in moral judgment that considers their own values, desires, and the consequences of their decisions. Real-life implications. Life lesson: life is inherently complex, and ethical decisions often require navigating competing values and interests. Embrace this complexity and be prepared for the fact that many moral dilemmas cannot be resolved through simple rules or abstract ideals. Learn to make ethical decisions with a sense of humility and self-awareness. By accepting that moral life is full of contradictions and ambiguities, we become better equipped to make difficult decisions and to accept the uncertainties that come with living authentically. 2. The importance of personal integrity. For Williams, personal integrity was a cornerstone of moral life. Integrity, in his view, meant more than adhering to a set of moral rules or acting in line with social expectations. It was about being true to one's values, identity, and self-concept, even when doing so came at a personal cost. Integrity and authenticity. In his essay, The Idea of Equality, 1973, Williams discusses how personal integrity is central to an individual's moral development. He suggested that integrity is about aligning one's actions with one's deeper sense of self. This means resisting pressures to conform to societal norms or to act in ways that contradict one's fundamental values. Williams warned against the temptation to act inauthentically just to avoid conflict or gain social approval. To do so would be to live a life that lacks coherence and meaning. A critical aspect of integrity, for Williams, is the idea of being morally honest with oneself. In his work Morality, An Introduction to Ethics, 1972, Williams emphasized that moral life is not just about conforming to external expectations but about developing a sense of moral coherence between one's values and actions. Integrity involves acknowledging our desires, biases, and limitations while still striving to live according to what we believe is right. Integrity in the face of conflict. Williams recognized that maintaining personal integrity can sometimes be difficult, especially when one's values come into conflict with societal expectations. For example, a person may feel torn between pursuing their career ambitions and spending time with family, or they may struggle to choose between loyalty to a close friend and standing up for what they believe to be morally right in a broader social context. In these situations, Williams urged individuals to stay true to their core values, even if it leads to personal sacrifice. Real-life implications. Life lesson: integrity involves being true to yourself, even when doing so conflicts with social pressures or immediate personal gain. It requires self-reflection, honesty, and the courage to act in accordance with your deepest values, no matter the consequences. Living with integrity means being self-aware and committed to a life that is authentic, even in the face of difficulties or sacrifices. In a world that often prioritizes conformity, cultivating integrity is essential for living a meaningful and moral life. 3. The limits of reason. A central aspect of Williams' philosophy was his critique of the Enlightenment ideal that reason can provide clear, rational answers to all of life's questions. In particular, he was critical of moral theories that overemphasized the role of rationality in ethical decision-making. Williams argued that reason is not sufficient to address the emotional, psychological, and social complexities inherent in human life. Critique of rationalism. Williams explored the role of reason in his work Truth and Truthfulness, 2002, where he argued that while reason is an important tool for decision-making, it cannot fully account for the complexities of human moral life. Reason alone cannot capture the emotional and existential dimensions of human experience. He contended that moral dilemmas often involve deeply felt emotions, personal biases, and social contexts that reason cannot resolve by itself. In addition, Williams argued that moral theories which prioritize reason often ignore the role of human imagination, emotions, and social relationships in shaping our understanding of right and wrong. He believed that ethical systems that emphasize abstract principles of reason, such as utilitarianism or Kantian ethics, are incomplete because they fail to account for the lived reality of human beings. Moral emotion. Williams emphasized that emotions like empathy, love, anger, and guilt play an essential role in moral judgment. For instance, moral emotions help guide our understanding of justice, fairness, and responsibility. He argued that these emotions are not irrational, rather, they are integral to making ethical decisions. Emotional responses to situations help us navigate the moral landscape, especially when reason alone cannot provide clear answers. Real-life implications. Life lesson: while reason is valuable, it cannot always provide the answers to life's complex ethical questions. Embrace the role of emotions, personal experiences, and social contexts in moral decision-making. Recognize that your feelings, intuition, and biases contribute to your moral understanding, and learn to balance rational thought with emotional intelligence. By acknowledging the limits of reason, we can approach moral questions with greater humility and openness, recognizing that life's complexities often require more than abstract rationality to resolve. 4. The role of history in shaping identity. Williams was keenly aware of the role history plays in shaping both individual identity and moral values. He argued that ethics and moral identity are deeply embedded within historical and cultural contexts, and that our understanding of what is right or wrong is shaped by the social, political, and historical forces that influence us. Contextual ethics. Williams was critical of ethical theories that tried to offer universal, timeless solutions to moral problems. He believed that moral values are not universal in the way that some philosophers, particularly those of the Enlightenment tradition, suggested. Instead, Williams argued that moral principles are always shaped by the historical and cultural context in which they emerge. He contended that individuals cannot fully understand their own moral obligations unless they recognize the historical and cultural influences that shape their worldview. For example, Williams explored the role of historical events in shaping moral consciousness. He argued that our sense of justice, fairness, and responsibility is deeply connected to the societies in which we live, and that these values evolve over time. By understanding the historical origins of our moral beliefs, we can better understand the nature of our ethical commitments and make more informed decisions about how to act. Historical reflection. Williams' emphasis on historical context also extended to his understanding of personal identity. He suggested that individuals must reflect on their personal histories in order to understand who they are and what they value. This kind of self-reflection allows us to make sense of the ways in which our past experiences, cultural upbringing, and historical context have shaped our present beliefs and actions. Real-life implications. Life lesson: acknowledge that your identity and moral values are shaped by the historical and cultural contexts in which you live. Reflect on your personal history and the ways in which your upbringing, experiences, and cultural background influence your beliefs and actions. By recognizing the historical forces that shape our moral understanding, we can gain a deeper understanding of who we are and how our ethical commitments have evolved over time. 5. Focus on human flourishing, not just rationality. For Williams, a central theme of ethics was the idea of human flourishing. He believed that moral philosophy should not be concerned solely with maximizing utility or adhering to abstract rules, but should focus on the development of human potential and the pursuit of meaningful goals. The pursuit of flourishing. Williams argued that human flourishing is more than just achieving happiness or fulfilling rational goals. It involves cultivating a life that reflects one's true self, developing personal virtues, and creating meaningful connections with others. He emphasized that the pursuit of flourishing requires self-reflection, emotional intelligence, and a commitment to growth, rather than simply following a set of rational rules. In The Sense of the Past, 1973, Williams discussed how human flourishing is not about achieving external goals but about cultivating a sense of meaning in life. Flourishing is about developing virtues such as courage, wisdom, and compassion, and about striving to live authentically in line with one's deepest values. Real-life implications. Life lesson: strive for personal flourishing by focusing on your values, passions, and potential. Human flourishing is not merely about following rules or achieving external success, it is about cultivating relationships, developing virtues, and creating a life that reflects your true self. By focusing on flourishing rather than mere rationality or external success, we can build lives that are both morally and personally fulfilling. 6. Accept the tragic dimensions of life. Williams had a deep understanding of the tragic nature of human existence. He acknowledged that life is full of suffering, loss, and limitation, and that these aspects cannot be avoided or ignored. Rather than offering idealized solutions to human suffering, Williams urged us to accept the tragic dimensions of life as a part of the human condition. Confronting tragedy. In his essay The Tragedy of Moral Philosophy, 1978, Williams discussed the ways in which philosophy often seeks to avoid the tragic aspects of life. He argued that a realistic approach to ethics must confront the fact that life is filled with loss, suffering, and limitations. Ethical theories that ignore these aspects of life, he believed, fail to provide a complete understanding of human existence. Williams suggested that accepting the tragic nature of life is essential for achieving moral wisdom. By acknowledging that suffering and loss are unavoidable parts of the human experience, we can develop resilience, empathy, and moral clarity. Real-life implications. Life lesson: accept that life involves suffering, loss, and limitation. Rather than avoiding or denying these realities, learn to confront them with courage and wisdom. Embracing life's tragedies can lead to greater moral understanding and emotional resilience. 7. Seek meaning in relationships and experiences. Finally, Williams emphasized that the search for meaning in life is not an individualistic endeavor, but one that is deeply connected to relationships with others. He argued that our moral identities are shaped through our interactions with people and the social world. The moral significance of relationships. Williams believed that moral decisions are inherently social. In Morality and the Emotions, 1981, he argued that our relationships with others provide the emotional depth and meaning necessary for understanding what is right and good. He suggested that moral life is enriched when individuals focus on building authentic relationships and contributing to the well-being of others. Real-life implications. Life lesson: meaning in life often comes from our relationships with others. Cultivate deep, meaningful connections and focus on the ways your actions can positively impact the lives of those around you. By fostering meaningful relationships and investing in the well-being of others, we can create lives that are rich in meaning and connected to the wider world. 8. Question universalism and embrace pluralism. Williams was deeply skeptical of universal moral theories that seek to apply one set of rules to all people, in all cultures, and at all times. He believed that such universal systems fail to account for the diversity of human experiences and the particularity of different cultures, traditions, and individual lives. Instead, Williams advocated for moral pluralism, which acknowledges the legitimacy of multiple moral perspectives that may conflict with one another, depending on cultural or personal contexts. Rejecting one-size-fits-all ethics. Williams was wary of the attempt to find one true, overarching moral principle that applies universally to all human beings. For example, in Ethics and the Limits of Philosophy, he critiques moral theories like utilitarianism and Kantianism, which often try to establish universally binding ethical standards. He argues that these theories impose a uniform framework onto a diverse and complex world, failing to account for the legitimate moral differences that arise from different historical contexts, cultural practices, and personal experiences. Pluralism in practice. For Williams, a moral pluralism approach involves recognizing that ethical conflicts often arise from differences in people's values, social backgrounds, and cultural contexts. Rather than trying to resolve these differences by imposing a single, universal moral code, Williams suggests that we should focus on dialogue, understanding, and negotiation between different moral perspectives. This does not mean that all moral views are equally valid in every situation, but it requires an openness to the possibility that moral reasoning is deeply contextual and that there is no singular answer to many ethical questions. Real-life implications. Life lesson: embrace the diversity of human experience by recognizing that there is no single, universal moral code that can apply to all people or situations. Instead, cultivate an open-minded and pluralistic approach to ethics, understanding that moral perspectives can differ across cultures and personal histories. By questioning the pursuit of a universal morality, we can better understand the complexities of different cultural and personal perspectives, which can lead to more inclusive, empathetic, and thoughtful approaches to moral challenges. 9. The significance of self-knowledge. Williams placed great importance on self-knowledge as a critical element in ethical living. In his view, understanding oneself, the motivations, desires, fears, and values that shape our actions, is essential for living a moral and meaningful life. This theme is central to many of his writings, particularly in his discussions about integrity and the complexities of ethical decision-making. Self-knowledge and moral choice. In his essay, The Self and the Good, 1981, Williams explores the relationship between self-knowledge and moral choice. He argues that making morally sound decisions is not just about applying abstract ethical principles, but involves a deep understanding of one's own desires, emotions, and personal history. To live ethically, one must understand not only what one wants to do but also why one wants to do it, recognizing how personal motivations might influence one's actions and decisions. Moreover, Williams believed that self-knowledge is important for the development of moral virtues. Without knowing oneself, individuals risk acting out of ignorance, fear, or blind conformity rather than from a place of genuine understanding and integrity. By developing self-awareness, individuals can better align their actions with their true values and make decisions that reflect their deeper moral convictions. Real-life implications. Life lesson: strive to understand yourself better, your motivations, desires, fears, and values. Self-knowledge is a key component of living an authentic and ethical life, enabling you to make moral decisions that are aligned with your true self. By cultivating self-awareness and a deeper understanding of one's own motivations, we can make more ethical choices and develop stronger moral clarity in our lives. 10. Moral courage in the face of social pressure. Williams recognized that, in many situations, individuals face significant social pressure to conform to the expectations and norms of their communities. This pressure can lead to moral compromises, where individuals act in ways they know are wrong just to fit in or avoid conflict. However, Williams believed that moral courage, having the strength to act in accordance with one's values, even when it is difficult or unpopular, is an essential aspect of living a morally responsible life. Courage to challenge social norms. In his writings, Williams often explored how moral courage requires resisting the dominant social conventions and pressures that dictate what is considered acceptable or normal. This is particularly evident in his analysis of moral dilemmas in his book Morality: An Introduction to Ethics. In many ethical dilemmas, individuals are faced with the choice between adhering to social conventions, even if those conventions are unjust, or acting according to their personal moral convictions, which may put them at odds with society. Williams acknowledged that it is often difficult to act against the grain of society. People may fear social rejection, personal sacrifice, or even outright hostility. Yet, he argued that moral courage is necessary to challenge oppressive social norms or to stand up for what is ethically right, even in the face of overwhelming opposition. Real-life implications. Life lesson: develop the moral courage to stand by your values, even when it requires going against social pressures. It may not be easy, but acting in line with your moral convictions, especially when they challenge societal norms, contributes to a more just and authentic life. By practicing moral courage, individuals can make a difference in their communities and resist the pressures that often lead to unethical behavior. This lesson encourages personal strength in confronting difficult moral challenges in a world that frequently encourages conformity over integrity. Conclusion of the expanded life lessons. Bernard Williams' philosophical contributions offer profound insights into how we can navigate the complexities of moral decision-making, personal integrity, and human flourishing. His lessons encourage us to embrace moral complexity, question universalist ideals, develop self-knowledge, and summon moral courage in the face of social pressure. Through his writings, Williams encourages us to accept the tragic dimensions of life, recognize the pluralism of moral perspectives, and live authentically in a world that constantly challenges our values. Each of these life lessons encourages greater introspection, empathy, and personal responsibility, providing us with tools for leading morally rich, fulfilling, and meaningful lives. By applying Williams' insights, we can become more attuned to the moral nuances of our everyday decisions, leading us to a life that is both ethically grounded and deeply human.